In Italian football, some clubs are known mainly for trophies, others for global brands, and others for dynasties built over generations. SSC Napoli is different. Napoli is a club inseparable from its city, Naples, the southern Italian metropolis on the Bay of Naples, full of history, noise, pride, and contradiction. To understand Napoli, you have to understand that the club has often carried more than sporting ambition. It has represented a city that wanted recognition in a country whose football power was long centered in the north, around Turin and Milan. Napoli's story is not a straight line of constant success. It is a cycle of promise, pain, glory, collapse, rebirth, and modern resurgence. From humble beginnings to Maradona's magic, from bankruptcy to Serie A titles again, Napoli became one of Italy's most emotionally powerful clubs. The roots of SSC Napoli go back to the early decades of organized football in Naples. The club was officially formed in 1926 as Associazione Calcio Napoli after earlier local football institutions merged and evolved. Before that, Naples Football Club and US Internazionale Napoli had helped establish the foundations of the sport in the city. Their identities mattered. Napoli's traditional look, sky blue shirts with white shorts, traces back to this early combination of local football cultures. In 1922, a predecessor called Inter Naples had already emerged from the merging of Naples FBC and Internazionale Napoli. By 1926, the city finally had a more unified club to represent it. But in those early years, Napoli was not yet a giant. Italian football was developing quickly, and the strongest teams were usually elsewhere. Napoli had passion, but not yet the trophies to match. For decades, Napoli lived more as an ambitious outsider than as a dominant force. The club competed, grew its support, and built a place in the Italian game, but major silverware was slow to arrive. That first breakthrough came in 1962, when Napoli won the Coppa Italia. It was a hugely important moment because it showed the club could convert the energy of Naples into national success. Winning a domestic cup may not sound as historic as a league title, but for Napoli it was proof of concept. The city had waited a long time to see its team lift a major trophy. The victory gave supporters something tangible to hold on to and helped establish Napoli as more than a regional curiosity. It was a club with a serious future, even if the greatest chapters were still decades away. By the 1970s, Napoli began to feel like a club pushing toward a higher ceiling. The team became more competitive and won the Coppa Italia again in 1976. This period mattered because it built the platform for what Napoli would later become. Supporters filled the stadium, the club developed a national profile, and Naples increasingly saw football as one of the clearest ways to express civic pride. The club still had to fight against richer and more established rivals, but the idea of Napoli as a major Italian force was no longer unrealistic. In a league where tradition and economic power often dictated hierarchy, Napoli's rise carried symbolic weight. The South wanted its seat at the table, and Napoli was becoming the vehicle for that demand. Then, in 1984, everything changed. Diego Armando Maradona arrived in Naples from Barcelona, and the transfer transformed both the club and the city. Maradona was already a superstar, but at Napoli he became something larger, a footballing savior, a cultural icon, and the central figure in the greatest era the club had ever seen. His arrival was not just about skill, although his skill was extraordinary. It was about belief. Napoli supporters saw in Maradona someone who understood struggle, defiance, and joy. He gave the team a competitive edge it had never possessed at that level. Suddenly, Napoli was not simply hoping to compete with the northern giants. With Maradona, Napoli could beat them, challenge them, and dream of surpassing them. The dream became reality in 1987, when Napoli won its first Serie A title. For the club, it was a sporting triumph. For Naples, it was almost a social earthquake. The Scudetto had mostly belonged to the established powers of Italian football, especially clubs from wealthier northern cities. Napoli winning the league meant the football map of Italy had been redrawn. That same year, the club also won the Coppa Italia, completing a historic domestic double. Maradona was the symbol, but the achievement belonged to a full team and a city that had waited generations for this validation. The celebrations in Naples became legendary because they were not just about football. They were about being seen, respected, and finally placed at the summit of Italian sport. Napoli's Maradona era did not stop with one perfect season. In 1989, the club won the UEFA Cup, its only European trophy. That victory expanded Napoli's identity beyond Italy and proved the team could succeed on the continental stage. Then, in 1990, Napoli won Serie A again, adding a second league title and confirming that the first was not a fluke. The club also lifted the Supercoppa Italiana in 1990. In 7 seasons with Maradona, Napoli collected the trophies that still define its mythology: 2 league titles, a Coppa Italia, a Supercoppa, and a European crown. But more than numbers, this era created an emotional standard. Every Napoli team afterward would be measured against the memory of those nights when Naples felt like the center of the football universe. After Maradona left in 1991, the story darkened. Napoli had climbed to impossible heights, but maintaining that level proved difficult. The club struggled financially, performances declined, and the gap between memory and reality grew painful. Relegations followed, and Napoli's position among Italy's elite collapsed. Eventually, the financial problems became so severe that the club went bankrupt. For supporters who had lived through the Maradona years, the fall was brutal. The same team that had humbled giants was now fighting for survival. Yet this collapse is essential to Napoli's identity. It explains why later success felt so emotional. Napoli did not simply continue as a superclub. It lost almost everything and had to begin again from the ruins. The rebirth began in 2004, when film producer Aurelio De Laurentiis took control and refounded the club. This was not a glamorous restart at the top. Napoli had to rebuild its structure, reputation, and sporting level step by step. The project worked quickly. Within 3 years, Napoli returned to Serie A, a remarkable comeback for a club that had recently faced extinction. De Laurentiis brought organization and ambition, and Napoli gradually became a stable presence near the top of Italian football again. The reborn club did not immediately recreate the Maradona era, but it restored belief. Fans who had watched bankruptcy and lower division football now saw a pathway back to national relevance. The Phoenix image fits Napoli because the club's modern identity was forged in that return from collapse. In the years after returning to Serie A, Napoli became one of Italy's strongest modern clubs. The team won the Coppa Italia in 2012, 2014, and 2020, adding new silverware to its post-bankruptcy era. It also won the Supercoppa Italiana in 2014, and later added further Supercoppa success in the mid-2020s. These trophies mattered because they showed Napoli was no longer just a nostalgic club living off Maradona memories. It was competing in the present. Revenue and club value also grew, with Napoli ranking among the higher-earning and more valuable clubs in Italy. The club became an associate member of the European Club Association, signaling its place within the broader structure of elite European football. Napoli had re-entered the conversation not as a sentimental story, but as a serious institution. The most powerful proof of Napoli's modern resurgence came with new Serie A titles in the 2020s. Winning the league again after the Maradona era carried enormous emotional weight. For decades, the 1987 and 1990 titles had stood like sacred monuments, almost impossible to repeat. When Napoli returned to the top of Italy, it reconnected generations of fans, those who remembered Maradona, those who grew up during the financial collapse, and younger supporters who had only heard stories of Scudetto celebrations. A league title is the deepest test in Italian football because it requires consistency across an entire season. Napoli's modern Scudetti showed planning, talent, and tactical identity. They also proved that Naples' football dream did not belong only to the past. It could be lived again. Napoli's home is as symbolic as the club itself. Since 1959, the team has played at the Stadio San Paolo, later renamed the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona after Maradona's death in 2020. The renaming was more than a tribute, it formalized what many fans already felt, that Maradona's name was permanently woven into the city's football soul. The stadium has hosted generations of Napoli supporters, from the anxious years before glory to the explosive celebrations of title wins. Napoli's colors also carry identity: sky blue shirts, white shorts, and sky blue socks at home. The look is instantly recognizable and closely tied to Naples itself, reflecting the city's coastal setting and football heritage. In a faceless crowd shot, those blue shirts are enough to identify the club immediately. Napoli's fan base is one of the largest and most passionate in Italy, ranking among the country's biggest by attendance. That passion fuels intense rivalries. Juventus is a major rival because of sporting competition and the broader north-south tension that often surrounds Italian football culture. Roma represents the Derby del Sole, the Derby of the Sun, a rivalry between two powerful clubs from central and southern Italy. Napoli also has major rivalries with Internazionale and AC Milan, two historic giants from Milan, and with Salernitana in the Derby of Campania. These rivalries are not just fixtures on a calendar. They are identity tests. Every big match allows Napoli to assert what it has always wanted to prove, that Naples belongs at the highest level of Italian football. Today, SSC Napoli stands as one of Italy's most successful and culturally significant clubs. Its trophy cabinet includes multiple Serie A titles, Coppa Italia, Supercoppa Italiane, and the 1989 UEFA Cup. But the full story is bigger than honors. Napoli is a club formed from local roots, lifted by a city's passion, transformed by Maradona, broken by financial disaster, and rebuilt into a modern contender. Its anthem, Napoli by Nino D'Angelo, captures the emotional bond between team and city. Its stadium carries the name of its greatest icon. Its colors are instantly tied to Naples. And its supporters continue to make the club feel like more than a sports organization. SSC Napoli is proof that football can become a city's voice, proud, wounded, joyful, and impossible to ignore. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.